A raging storm. A car stranded on the side of the road. When Jace Hamilton stops to help, the last person he expects to find is Ava, his ex-wife, missing for 5 years. But she's not alone, and the secret she carries will change everything. The past is back. Now, what happens next? Before we dive into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from. The rain pounded against the windshield of Jace Hamilton's pickup truck as he drove down the winding country road. Lightning flashed across the dark sky, illuminating the fields he'd worked his whole life. At 42, Jace had built his family's struggling farm into a thriving agricultural empire, but success hadn't filled the emptiness in his heart. He squinted through the downpour, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Most folks in Riverdale County knew better than to be out on a night like this. The weather report had warned about flash floods, and Jace had spent the afternoon securing the barns and checking on the livestock before heading into town for an emergency meeting with his farm managers. That's when he saw it. A car pulled off to the side of the road, hazard lights blinking weakly through the curtain of rain. "Dang fool," he muttered, slowing his truck. "Gonna get yourself killed out here." Jace pulled up behind the stranded vehicle, a modest sedan that had clearly seen better days. He grabbed his raincoat from the passenger seat and stepped out into the storm, immediately feeling the full force of the rain soaking through his jeans. As he approached the car, he saw a woman inside, her face lit by the glow of a cell phone. Something about the way she held herself, shoulders tight, head bent, struck a familiar chord. But it couldn't be. She rolled down her window just a crack. "I've called for help," she said, her voice barely audible over the storm. "You don't need to." The words died in her throat as she looked up at him. Jace felt like he'd been kicked in the chest by one of his prize bulls. "Ava," he whispered. 5 years. It had been 5 years since he'd last seen her face. Since the day she'd walked out of their home, out of their marriage, out of his life without a proper goodbye. Just a note saying she needed space and time to figure things out. By the time he'd gotten home from the fields that day, she was gone, leaving behind the diamond ring he'd saved 3 years to buy her, and a house full of memories they'd built over 7 years of marriage. "Jace." Her voice was exactly as he remembered it, soft but strong, like the first warm breeze of spring after a long winter. They stared at each other through the rain, years of unspoken words hanging between them. A flash of lightning illuminated her face, still beautiful, still the face that haunted his dreams, but different somehow. Tired, afraid. "Your car break down?" he asked, forcing his voice to remain steady. She nodded. "Something with the engine, it just stopped." "You shouldn't be out in this storm," he said. "It's not safe. Flash flood warnings all over the county." "I know," she replied. I needed to get through." Through, not home. The word stung more than he expected. A sudden whimper from the back seat caught his attention. Ava's eyes widened with panic as she turned to look behind her. "It's okay, honey," she said softly. "Go back to sleep." Jace stepped back, peering through the rear window. In the dim light, he could make out a child's car seat and a small figure bundled up in a blanket. "You have a child?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the hammering rain. Ava didn't answer, but her eyes, those deep brown eyes he'd once known better than his own, filled with a mixture of fear and defiance. Another flash of lightning, closer this time, followed immediately by a crash of thunder that shook the ground beneath them. "This storm's getting worse," Jace said firmly. "You can't stay out here. My farm's just 3 miles down the road. You can wait there until someone can look at your car." For a moment, he thought she might refuse. The Ava he'd known had been stubborn to a fault, fiercely independent even when it put her at risk. But then there was another whimper from the back seat, and he watched her resolve crumble. "Okay," she said, "just until the storm passes. Get your things. I'll help with the car seat." As Ava gathered a small overnight bag from the front seat, Jace opened the rear door. The little girl was awake, now her eyes wide with fear as the storm raged around them. And then he saw it, those eyes. Not Ava's warm brown, but a startling crystal blue, his blue. The same color that looked back at him from every mirror, the same color as his father's eyes and his grandfather's before him. The world seemed to tilt beneath his feet as the truth hit him with the force of the gale swirling around them. "Jace!" Ava called over the storm, clutching her bag to her chest. "We need to go. Now." He couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't tear his gaze away from the child. The little girl with his eyes, is she? The question died in his throat. A massive crack of thunder made the decision for them, as the little girl began to cry in earnest. "Later," Ava said, her voice breaking. "Please, Jace." Somehow, he managed to unhook the car seat and transfer it to his truck, working on autopilot while his mind reeled. Ava climbed into the passenger seat, pulling the crying child onto her lap and whispering soothing words into her hair. The drive to the farm was the longest 3 miles of Jace's life. The only sounds were the pounding rain, the occasional rumble of thunder, and Ava's soft voice comforting the child. His child? The question burned in his throat. Hamilton Farm came into view as they crested the hill, a sprawling main house with its wide front porch, surrounded by modern barns and equipment sheds. What had been a modest family farm when he and Ava were married had grown into one of the most successful agricultural operations in the state. He pulled up to the house and cut the engine. "You've done well for yourself," Ava said quietly, looking out at the property. "Had to keep busy," he replied, not looking at her. "Come on, let's get inside before we all catch pneumonia." The farmhouse had been modernized, but Jace had kept its heart intact. The wide plank floors, the stone fireplace, the kitchen where his mother had taught him to make her famous apple pie. He'd added a wing with a home office, updated the appliances, and remodeled the bathrooms, but it was still the same house where he and Ava had once been happy. "Wait here," he said, gesturing to the kitchen. "I'll get some towels." When he returned, Ava was standing exactly where he'd left her, clutching the little girl to her chest. The child had fallen back asleep, her head nestled against her mother's shoulder, one small hand curled around a strand of Ava's dark hair. "Here," he said, handing Ava a towel. "You'll catch cold." "Thank you," she said, her voice little more than a whisper. Jace busied himself starting a fire in the living room fireplace, needing something, anything to do with his hands. His mind was a jumble of questions, accusations, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal that threatened to choke him. "Her name is Emma," Ava said from behind him. "She's 3 years old. 3 years plus 9 months of pregnancy, almost 4 years ago, a year after she'd left him." "Is she mine, Ava?" he asked, his back still turned, voice rough with emotion. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the crackling of the newly lit fire. "Yes," she finally said. "She's yours." Jace closed his eyes, feeling as though all the air had been sucked from the room. He'd imagined 1,000 different scenarios over the years, 1,000 different reasons why Ava had left. But this, a child his child kept from him, had never crossed his mind. He turned to face her, struggling to keep his voice even. "Why? Why would you keep her from me?" Ava's eyes filled with tears. "It's complicated, Jace." "Complicated?" he repeated, a bitter laugh escaping him. "You disappeared from my life without a word, had my child and never told me. Complicated doesn't begin to cover it, Ava." "I know you're angry," she said, shifting the sleeping Emma to her other shoulder. "You have every right to be. But I did what I thought was best at the time." "Best?" Jace's voice rose despite his efforts to stay calm. "How could keeping my own daughter from me possibly be what's best?" Emma stirred at the sound of his raised voice, her little face scrunching up as she began to wake. "Please," Ava whispered, urgently. "Not now, not while she's here." Jace ran a hand through his damp hair, fighting to regain control of his emotions. "Fine. There's a guest room upstairs, first door on the left, bathrooms across the hall. We'll talk in the morning." Relief flooded Ava's face. "Thank you." As she turned to leave, he couldn't help but ask, "Why are you here now, Ava? After all this time, why come back to Riverdale?" She paused at the foot of the stairs, her back to him. "I didn't plan to come back. I never wanted to see this place again." Her voice was so quiet he had to strain to hear it. "But sometimes we don't have a choice. What does that mean?" She turned slightly, her profile illuminated by the firelight. "It means I'm in trouble, Jace." the kind I can't run from anymore. Before. He could ask anything else. She climbed the stairs, taking his daughter with her. Jace spent the night on the couch, sleep eluding him as the storm raged outside. His mind was a battlefield of emotions. Anger at Ava's deception, wonder at the existence of his daughter, and beneath it all, the treacherous embers of feelings he'd thought long extinguished. Morning brought clear skies and the gentle sounds of a farm coming to life. Jace had been up since dawn, checking on the damage from the storm and giving instructions to his farm manager, Matt, about repairs to a section of fencing that had come down. He was on his second cup of coffee when he heard small footsteps on the stairs. His heart hammered in his chest as Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway, her blue eyes, his eyes, wide with curiosity. "Hello," she said, her voice small but clear. "Hello," Jace replied, setting down his mug with a hand that wasn't quite steady. "I'm Emma," she informed him solemnly. "I'm 3. She held up 3 tiny fingers to illustrate. "I'm Jace," he said, his throat tight. "It's nice to meet you, Emma." She padded further into the kitchen, looking around with interest. "You have a big house." "I do," he agreed. "It's a farm. Do you know what that is?" Emma nodded vigorously. "Animals. Mommy shows me pictures in my book. Cows and horses and pigs and chickens." "That's right," he said, unable to hold back a smile. "Would you like some breakfast? I could make you some pancakes." Her entire face lit up. "With syrup?" "Of course. Pancakes aren't pancakes without syrup." He was measuring flour into a bowl when Ava appeared, her face pale with worry, until she spotted Emma sitting at the kitchen island, swinging her legs as she watched Jace prepare breakfast. "Emma," she said, relief evident in her voice, "you shouldn't wander off without me." "I was hungry," Emma explained simply. "And I found Jace. He's making pancakes." Ava's eyes met Jace's over their daughter's head. "I'm sorry, she's an early riser." "It's fine," he said, returning to his mixing. "Coffee's fresh if you want some." An awkward silence fell as Ava poured herself a cup and sat beside Emma at the island. Jace focused on making perfect pancakes, trying to ignore the surreal feeling of having his ex-wife and the daughter he never knew he had sitting in his kitchen. "These look yummy," Emma declared when he set a plate of golden pancakes in front of her, already cut into bite-sized pieces. "Careful, it's hot," Ava cautioned, helping Emma with her fork. Jace sat across from them with his own plate, though he had little appetite. He watched as Emma ate enthusiastically, occasionally pausing to share an important fact about her favorite cartoon or the teddy bear she'd left upstairs. "What happened to your car?" he asked Ava, when there was a lull in Emma's chatter. "The mechanic called this morning," she replied. "Water got into the engine somehow. It'll be a few days before they can get the parts to fix it." Jace nodded slowly. "You can stay here until it's ready." Surprise flashed across Ava's face. "That's very generous of you, but we can get a room in town." "Don't be ridiculous," he said firmly. "The house has plenty of room and—" He glanced at Emma, who was focused on drowning her last pancake piece in syrup. "And we have things to discuss." Ava looked like she wanted to argue, but then sighed. "Thank you." After breakfast, Emma asked to watch TV, and Ava settled her in the living room with a children's show before rejoining Jace in the kitchen. "She's beautiful," he said quietly, rinsing plates in the sink. "Yes," Ava agreed. "She is. She has my eyes." "And your stubborn chin," Ava added with the ghost of a smile. "And your love of pancakes, apparently." Jace turned off the water and faced her. "Why, Ava? I need to know why you left, why you kept her from me." Ava leaned against the counter, her fingers wrapped tightly around her coffee mug. "I found out I was pregnant a few weeks after I left. I was going to tell you, but then I met someone who recognized me from the charity events we used to attend. She mentioned how well you were doing, how the Hamilton name was becoming well known in agricultural circles." "So what?" Jace asked, baffled. "You thought I was too busy with the farm to be a father?" "No," she said, setting down her mug. "I thought about coming back, Jace, but then I remembered all the fights, all the late nights you spent working, all the times you chose the farm over me." "That's not fair," he protested. "I was building something for us, for our future." "I know that now," she said softly. But back then, all I knew was that I felt alone in our marriage, and I didn't want my child to feel the same way. Jace felt a familiar anger rising. So you made the decision for me? You decided I didn't deserve to know my own daughter. I made a mistake, Ava admitted, tears filling her eyes. A terrible mistake, I see that now. Why are you really here, Ava? He demanded. You said you were in trouble. What kind of trouble makes you come back to the place you never wanted to see again? She glanced toward the living room, where Emma's show could be heard playing. Not here, she said. Not where she might hear. Fine, he replied. Tonight, after she's asleep. But I want the whole truth, Ava, all of it. She nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. You'll get it, I promise. The day passed in a strange dance of awkward civility. Jace took care of farm business, checking in with his managers and making calls to assess storm damage across the county. Ava kept Emma entertained, exploring the parts of the house that had once been as familiar to her as her own reflection. In the afternoon, Emma asked to see the animals, and Jace found himself leading them on a tour of the barns. He watched as his daughter's eyes widened at the sight of the horses, her tiny hand reaching out cautiously to pet a gentle mare named Daisy. She likes you, he told Emma, showing her how to offer an apple slice on her flat palm. Emma's delighted giggle when the horse's soft muzzle tickled her hand was a sound he knew he'd never forget. So you're good with her, Ava commented as they walked back to the house, Emma running ahead to chase a butterfly. She makes it easy, Jace replied. She's amazing. Yes, Ava agreed. She is. That night, after a dinner of spaghetti, Emma's favorite, he learned, Ava put their daughter to bed in the guest room. Jace waited in his office, trying to prepare himself for whatever Ava was about to tell him. When she finally appeared in the doorway, her face was set with determination. Before I start, she said, I need you to know that everything I did, every decision I made was to protect Emma. From what? Jace asked, gesturing for her to sit in the leather chair across from his desk. Ava took a deep breath. From Victor Reynolds. The name hit Jace like a physical blow. Victor Reynolds was one of the wealthiest men in the state, a real estate developer known for his ruthless business tactics and political connections. What does Reynolds have to do with this? He asked, his voice low. After I left, Ava began, her hands twisting in her lap. I moved to the city. I was still trying to figure things out, trying to decide if I'd made the right choice. I took a job as an administrative assistant at Reynolds Development. Jace waited, a sense of dread building in his chest. Victor took an interest in me, she continued. He was charming, powerful. He made me feel valued in a way I hadn't in a long time. She looked up, meeting Jace's gaze directly. We started dating. Jace's jaw clenched, but he remained silent. When I found out I was pregnant, Ava went on. I knew it was yours, the timing, it had to be. But Victor assumed the baby was his, and I didn't correct him. You let another man believe he was Emma's father. Jace's voice was dangerously quiet. It was a mistake, Ava admitted. One of many. By the time I realized what kind of man Victor really was, it was too late. We were living together, and he had this image of us as the perfect family. What kind of man is he, Ava? She swallowed hard. Controlling, possessive. He has a temper, especially when he drinks. At first, it was just verbal, put-downs, accusations, threats. But after Emma was born, it got worse. He wanted a son, not a daughter. He blamed me as if I could control it. Jace's blood ran cold. Did he hurt you? Yes, she whispered. But I could handle it. I stayed because I thought it was safer than leaving. Victor has connections everywhere, police, judges, politicians. He made it clear that if I ever tried to leave him, he'd make sure I never saw Emma again. So what changed? Jace asked. Why run now? 3 days ago, I came home early from grocery shopping. Emma was supposed to be napping, but I heard her crying from the nursery. Ava's voice broke. Victor was shaking her, screaming at her for spilling juice on his papers. She had bruises on her arms, Jace, bruises in the shape of his fingers. Jace's hands curled into fists, rage surging through him. I got her out that night, Ava continued, packed what I could carry, and used the emergency cash I'd been hiding. I knew we had to disappear, somewhere Victor wouldn't think to look. So, you came here, Jace finished. To Riverdale. She nodded. The last place on Earth Victor would expect me to go. I was planning to stay just long enough to figure out our next move, but then the storm hit, and the car broke down and... She spread her hands helplessly. Here we are. Does Reynolds know Emma isn't his? No, Ava said. At least I don't think so, but it wouldn't matter to him. In his mind, she's his property, just like everything else he owns. Jace stood, pacing the length of his office. So let me get this straight. You've spent the last 3 years living with a man who abused you, letting him believe my daughter was his, and now you're on the run because he hurt her too. Ava flinched at his harsh tone. I know how it sounds. I know I've made terrible choices, but I'm trying to fix it now. I'm trying to keep her safe. Safe? Jace laughed bitterly. You think you're safe here? Reynolds has resources, connections. If he's looking for you, it's only a matter of time before he tracks you down. I know, she said, her voice small. That's why we can't stay long. I just need a few days to rest, to think, to plan our next move. Jace stopped pacing and looked at her, really looked at her. Beneath the familiar beauty, he could see the toll the last few years had taken. The shadows under her eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the way she startled at sudden movements. This wasn't the strong, confident woman who had left him. This was someone who had been broken and was desperately trying to put herself back together for the sake of her child. Their child. You're not going anywhere, he said firmly. Ava looked up, confusion written across her face. What? You and Emma are staying right here where I can protect you both. Jace, you don't understand. Victor is dangerous. I understand perfectly. He cut her off. I understand that for the last 3 years my daughter has been living with a monster. I understand that you've been trapped in a nightmare, and I understand that it stops now. How? Ava asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sir, you can't just make Victor Reynolds disappear. A grim smile crossed Jace's face. Maybe not, but I'm not the same man you left behind, Ava. I've built connections of my own, and I will move heaven and earth to keep my daughter safe. He crossed the room and knelt in front of her chair, taking her hands in his. They were cold, trembling slightly. I'm still angry, he told her honestly. I don't know if I can forgive what you did, but right now that doesn't matter. What matters is Emma. Tears spilled down Ava's cheeks. I never stopped loving you, she confessed, the words tumbling out as if she'd held them back for too long. Even when I convinced myself I hated you, even when I was with Victor, it was always you, Jace. The admission hung in the air between them, fraught with years of pain and regret. Jace released her hands and stood, needing distance from the emotions her words had stirred. It's late. We should both get some rest. Ava nodded, wiping away her tears. What happens now? Now, he said, we prepare. Because if Reynolds is the man you say he is, he won't stop until he finds you. And when he does, I'll be waiting. As Ava left the office, Jace turned to look out the window at the farm illuminated by moonlight. His land, his legacy, the empire. He'd built in the empty years since Ava had left. For the first time, he had something far more precious to protect. And God help anyone who tried to take it from him. The next morning dawned bright and clear, as if the previous night's storm had never happened. Jace was up before the sun, his mind too full of plans and worries to allow for rest. He spent the early hours checking on repairs around the property. His phone pressed to his ear as he made call after call. I don't care what it costs, Tom. I want that security system installed today, he told his head of security, a former police officer who now handled safety measures for the entire Hamilton operation. Top of the line, cameras on every approach. To the house. It was nearly 9 when he returned to the main house, carrying a bag of fresh pastries from Millie's bakery in town. The scent of coffee greeted him as he stepped into the kitchen. Uncle Matt showed me the baby chickens, Emma announced excitedly from her perch at the kitchen island, where she was coloring in a makeshift coloring book created from printer paper. Jace raised an eyebrow at Matt Peterson, his farm manager and oldest friend, who shrugged apologetically. She was up early, boss. Found me checking the chicken coop and wouldn't take no for an answer. Uncle Matt, Jace questioned. My idea, Ava said, entering the kitchen with a basket of freshly gathered eggs. I thought it would be easier than explaining everything. Jace nodded, understanding the complexity of their situation. How did you explain to a 3-year-old that the man she'd been told was her father wasn't, and this stranger was? That would have to wait. I brought breakfast, he said, setting the bag on the counter. Where'd you get the eggs? Gathered them myself, Ava replied with a small smile. Some things you don't forget. Matt glanced between them, curiosity evident in his expression. He'd been there for the aftermath of Ava's departure, had watched Jace throw himself into building the farm to avoid facing the emptiness she'd left behind. I should get back to work, Matt said, ruffling Emma's hair. See you later, Squirt. After he left, Jace poured himself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter. I've arranged for some additional security around the property, he told. Ava quietly, while Emma was absorbed in her coloring. Tom Blake will be here this afternoon to install cameras and a new alarm system. Ava's hands stilled as she placed eggs in the refrigerator. You think that's necessary? You tell me, Jace replied. Is Reynolds the type to give up easily? She closed the refrigerator door and turned to face him, her expression grim. No, once Victor decides he wants something, he'll move heaven and earth to get it. Then yes, it's necessary. Emma looked up from her coloring. What's necessary? Mean? It means something that has to happen, Jace explained, smiling at his daughter. Like eating your vegetables or brushing your teeth. Emma made a face. I don't like vegetables. Not even carrots, Jace asked. I have some special carrots growing in the garden that horses love. Maybe you'd like those. Emma seemed to consider this seriously. Maybe. Can we see them? After breakfast, Jace promised. I'll show you the whole garden. As they ate the pastries, Jace couldn't help but marvel at the easy way Emma had accepted his presence in her life. She chatted about the chickens she'd seen, asking 100 questions about the farm and the animals, her blue eyes, his eyes, wide with curiosity and excitement. Be careful with those questions, Em, Ava warned with a fond smile. Mr. Hamilton might run out of answers, Jace, he corrected gently. And I don't mind, ask away, Emma. Do you have any horses? She asked immediately. I do, 6 of them. Can I see them? Can I ride one, please? Jace glanced at Ava, seeking permission. She hesitated, then nodded. Maybe a very short ride, if Jace has a gentle horse. Daisy's as gentle as they come, Jace assured her. I'll hold her the whole time, won't let her go faster than a walk. The morning passed in a blur of showing Emma around the farm. Jace introduced her to each of the horses, helped her feed carrots to the gentle mare Daisy, and then lifted her onto the saddle for a slow walk around the paddock. The delight on her face as she perched atop the horse, her tiny hands clutching the saddle horn, made his chest tight with emotion. Look, Mummy, I'm riding, she called to Ava, who watched from the fence with a mixture of anxiety and joy. I see you, baby, you're doing great. Later, Jace showed them the vegetable garden where he grew produce for the local farmers market. Emma was fascinated by the ripe tomatoes and the tall stalks of corn, especially when Jace pulled back, the husks to show her the kernels growing inside. It's like magic, she whispered, her small finger tracing the neat rows of corn. Kind of is, Jace agreed. Plant a tiny seed, add sunshine and rain, and look what happens. He glanced up to find Ava watching them, an unreadable expression on her face. For a moment, he could almost believe they were the family they should have been. Him, Ava, and their daughter, enjoying a simple morning on the farm they'd built together. But the illusion was shattered by the arrival of Tom Blake's security team, their vans pulling up to the house in a convoy that immediately caught Emma's attention. Who are those people? She asked, as Jace led them back toward the house. They're here to put up special cameras, Jace explained, keeping his voice light, to help us keep an eye on the animals. Emma accepted this explanation without question, but Ava's eyes met his over their daughter's head, filled with worry. While Tom and his team worked on installing the security system, Jace took Ava and Emma into town to buy some clothes and necessities. They'd left Victor's house with only what they could fit in a small suitcase, and Emma needed more than the few outfits Ava had managed to grab. Riverdale wasn't a large town, but its main street had enough shops to cover the basics. As they walked from the children's boutique to the pharmacy, Jace couldn't help but notice how Ava kept scanning their surroundings, her body tense, ready to flee at the first sign of danger. "Relax," he murmured as they waited for the pharmacist to fill a prescription for Emma's allergy medicine. "No one's looking for you here." "You don't know Victor," she replied, her voice equally low. "He has eyes everywhere." "Not in Riverdale," Jace assured her. "This is my territory, Ava. People here look out for their own." She gave him a skeptical look. "And I'm their own now? After disappearing for 5 years?" Before he could respond, a woman's voice called out, "Jace Hamilton, as I live and breathe, haven't seen you in town on a Tuesday in ages." Martha Wilkins, owner of the local diner and the town's most notorious gossip, approached them with a wide smile that faltered slightly when she spotted Ava. "Well now," she said, her eyes widening. "Ava Mitchell, you're the last person I expected to see back in Riverdale." "Hello, Martha," Ava said politely. "How have you been?" "Can't complain," Martha replied, her gaze now fixed on Emma, who was hiding partially behind Ava's legs. "And who's this little angel?" Jace stepped forward slightly, positioning himself, as if to shield both Ava and Emma. "This is Emma," he said simply, offering no further explanation. Martha's eyes darted between the three of them, and Jace could practically see the gears turning in her head as she noted Emma's striking blue eyes, the Hamilton eyes. "Well," she said finally, a new speculation entering her gaze. "She's a beautiful child. You must be very proud." "Thank you," Ava replied, drawing Emma closer to her side. "It was nice seeing you, Martha." "Likewise," Martha said, though her attention had already shifted to her phone. "You all have a blessed day now." As Martha walked away, already typing rapidly on her phone, Ava turned to Jace with a look of resignation. "And that's how it begins," she murmured. "By dinner, everyone in 3 counties will know I'm back, and I have a child who looks exactly like you." "Would that be so terrible?" Jace asked quietly. Ava's expression softened. "No, but it complicates things. Victor has investigators, Jace. If word gets back to him, let it," Jace said firmly. "Let him come. I'll be waiting." Back at the farm, they found Tom's team finishing up the installation of the security system. Tom himself met them at the door, tablet in hand. "All set, boss," he reported. 16 cameras covering every approach to the house, motion sensors on all doors and windows, panic buttons in the master bedroom, kitchen and your office, apps all set up on your phone so you can monitor everything remotely. "Thanks, Tom," Jay said, taking the tablet to review the camera feeds. "What about the guest house?" "Same setup, plus direct connection to the main house alarm. Anything triggers over there, you'll know instantly." Ava looked up sharply. "Guest house?" "Thought you might want your own space," Jace explained. "It's just across the garden, completely renovated last year. 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, nice little porch." "That's very thoughtful," Ava said, surprise evident in her voice. After Tom left, Jace showed them to the guest house, a charming cottage with whitewashed walls and blue shutters that matched the main house. Inside, it was cozy and modern, with comfortable furniture and large windows that flooded the rooms with afternoon light. "It's lovely," Ava said, watching as Emma immediately claimed the smaller bedroom, running from window to window to take in the views of the farm. "Thought you might be more comfortable here," Jace said. "Some space of your own, and some distance between us," Ava asked quietly. Jace met her gaze steadily. "That too. We've got a lot to work through, Ava. Might be easier with a little breathing room." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Thank you for all of this. I know you didn't have to." "Yes, I did," he interrupted. "For Emma." "For Emma," she agreed. As evening approached, Jace invited them to dinner at the main house. He wasn't much of a cook. Years of bachelorhood had limited his culinary skills to the basics, but he managed to put together a decent meal of grilled chicken, roasted potatoes, and a salad from vegetables fresh from his garden. "This is really good," Ava commented, seeming genuinely surprised as she took another bite of chicken. Jace chuckled. "Don't sound so shocked. I had to learn to feed myself after you left." The words came out more bitterly than he'd intended, and an awkward silence fell over the table. Emma, oblivious to the tension, piped up, "Mummy's a good cook too. She makes the best mac and cheese." "Is that right?" Jace asked, grateful for the innocent interruption. "Well, maybe she'll make it for us sometime." "Tomorrow," Emma declared. "Can we, Mummy? Please?" Ava smiled at her daughter. "Sure. If Jace has the ingredients, I'll make sure of it," he promised. After dinner, Jace helped Emma feed the barn cats while Ava cleaned up the kitchen, insisting it was the least she could do. It was a peaceful scene, one that could almost fool an observer into thinking they were a normal family. But the illusion was broken again by the ringing of Jace's phone. He checked the screen and frowned. "I need to take this," he told Ava, stepping onto the porch for privacy. "Jack," he greeted his lawyer, "what did you find out?" "It's not good, Jace," Jack Reeves replied, his voice grave. "Victor Reynolds is indeed looking for his wife and daughter. He's filed a missing persons report, claiming Ava is mentally unstable and abducted their child. He's got private investigators working the case, and he's leveraging his connections in law enforcement." Jace's grip tightened on the phone. "He's lying. Ava's not his wife, and Emma isn't his daughter." "Do you have proof of that?" Jack asked. "Birth certificate listing you as the father? DNA test? Anything?" "Not yet," Jace admitted. "But I will. Emma is mine, Jack. One look at her, and there's no doubt." "Unfortunately, the courts need more than a family resemblance," Jack said. "Especially when going up against someone with Reynolds' resources." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to establish legal paternity, and fast. Get a DNA test done, file for emergency custody, and Ava needs to come forward about the abuse. Without that, this looks like a custody dispute, and the law tends to favor the status quo." "But she's not even his wife," Jace protested. "Has she been living with him, presenting as a family? If so, some states recognize common law marriage, and even if not, he could still have established himself as Emma's de facto father." Jace pinched the bridge of his nose, frustration building. "What about the abuse? Can't we get a restraining order?" "We can try," Jack said, "but without documentation, police reports, hospital visits, witnesses, it's her word against his. And from what you've told me, this guy has friends in high places. So what do we do? Get that DNA test ASAP. Document everything Ava can remember about the abuse, dates, times, witnesses, if any. And," Jack hesitated, "you might want to consider hiring some security. If Reynolds is as dangerous as you say and he finds out where." "Ava and Emma are already done," Jace assured him. "Anything else?" "Just be careful, Jace. Men like Reynolds don't like to lose, and from what my contacts tell me, he's taking this very personally." After ending the call, Jace stood on the porch for a long moment, watching the sun set over his fields. The peaceful scene belied the storm he knew was coming. Inside, he found Ava in the living room, a sleeping Emma curled against her side on the couch. "She was worn out from all the excitement," Ava said softly, stroking Emma's dark hair. "New place, new experiences, new people." Jace sat in the armchair across from them, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "We need to talk about next steps," he said quietly. "That was my lawyer on the phone." Alarm flashed across Ava's face. "What did he say?" "Reynolds has filed a missing persons report. He's claiming you're mentally unstable and abducted Emma." Ava's face drained of color. "That's his play to make me look crazy?" "It's effective," Jace pointed out. "Your word against his, and he's a respected businessman with political connections. While I'm just the unstable woman who ran away from her husband," Ava finished bitterly. "Classic. We need to get ahead of this," Jace continued. "First, we need a DNA test to establish that I'm Emma's biological father." Ava nodded slowly. "That won't be a problem. I've always known she was yours. Then we need to document the abuse. Everything you can remember, dates, incidents, anything that might help build a case against him." "There won't be much," Ava admitted. "Victor was careful. He never left marks where people could see them, and whenever things got bad, he'd send the household staff away. It was always just his word against mine, and no one was going to take my side over his." Jace had to work to keep his voice even, to push down the rage that rose at the thought of what she'd endured. What about Emma? You said he hurt her. Pain flashed across Ava's face. Yes, that was the first time, at least that I know of. She had bruises on her arms. I took pictures before we left. She swallowed hard. I never thought he'd hurt her. That's why I stayed as long as I did. I thought I was protecting her by staying. May I see the pictures? Ava carefully extracted herself from Emma's sleeping form and retrieved her phone from her purse. She pulled up the photos and handed the phone to Jace. The images made his blood boil. Small, distinct bruises on Emma's upper arms, clearly in the shape of adult fingers. His daughter. His little girl hurt by a man who had no right to call himself her father. We'll get him for this, he promised, his voice a low growl. He will never touch either of you again. It won't be easy, Ava warned. Victor owns judges, police chiefs. He has friends in the governor's office. He's used to getting his way. So am I, Jace replied simply. They sat in silence for a moment, the only sound Emma's soft breathing. Can I ask you something? Jace finally said. That night, when you left, was it really just about the farm? About me working too much? Ava sighed, her gaze fixed on their sleeping daughter. It was everything. And nothing. We were so young when we got married, Jace. Barely 20. I thought I knew what I wanted. But then the farm started taking off, and suddenly your whole life was about making it successful. I was building our future, Jace said, echoing his words from the night before. I wanted to give you everything. I know that now, she said softly. But back then, all I could see was that you were slipping away from me. Every day, a little more of you belonged to this place, and a little less belonged to me. I felt invisible. Why? Didn't you talk to me? I tried, but you were always so tired, so focused on the next thing. And then my mother got sick, and you couldn't even take a day off to go with me to see her. Jace winced, remembering that day. The irrigation system had failed, threatening an entire season's crop. He'd been working around the clock to save it. That was the breaking point, Ava continued. I realized I couldn't compete with this place. It would always come first. That's not fair, Jace protested. The farm was everything to me because you were everything to me. I wanted to build something worthy of you. All I wanted was you, Ava said simply. Just you, Jace, not the fancy house or the successful business. Just the man I fell in love with. Her words hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of years lost. And now? Jace asked quietly. What do you want now? Ava looked down at Emma, then back to him. Now, I just want her to be safe, to be happy, to know her real father. And after that, he pressed, once Reynolds is out of the picture, once Emma's safe, will you leave again? The question had been haunting him since the moment he'd recognized her in the storm. Would history repeat itself? Would he lose them both, just as he was finding them? I don't know, Ava admitted. I haven't thought past keeping her safe. Fair enough, Jace said, though her answer left a hollow feeling in his chest. One day at a time, then. He stood, stretching muscles tired from a day's work. It's getting late. I should let you two get settled in the guest house. Ava nodded, carefully lifting Emma into her arms. The child stirred but didn't wake, her head nestling against her mother's shoulder. I'll walk you over, Jace offered, opening the door for them. The night air was cool and sweet with the scent of summer flowers as they walked the short path to the guest house. Crickets chirped in the darkness, and the distant hoot of an owl added to the symphony of night sounds. At the door, Ava paused. Thank you, Jace, for everything. I know this isn't what you expected when you stopped to help a stranded car. No, he agreed, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from Emma's sleeping face. It's a whole lot more. Their eyes met over their daughter's head, and for a moment Jace could see a flicker of the old Ava, the woman who had once looked at him as if he'd hung the moon and stars just for her. Good night, Jace, she said softly. Good night, he replied, watching as she carried their daughter inside, the door closing firmly behind them. Back in the main house, Jace poured himself a small glass of whiskey and took it to his office. He sat at his desk, opening his laptop to check the security camera feeds. All clear, the farm peaceful under the summer moon. His phone buzzed with a text from Matt. "Town's talking. Martha's been busy. Everything okay?" Jace sighed. He'd known. It would happen. Riverdale's gossip network was more efficient than any social media platform. By morning, everyone would know that Ava was back, with a child who was clearly a Hamilton. "All good," he texted back. "Fill you in tomorrow." He was about to close his laptop when an email notification caught his eye. The sender was unfamiliar, but the subject line made his blood run cold. "I know she's there." With a sense of foreboding, Jace opened the email. "Hamilton," it read, "I believe you're harboring my family. That would be a mistake. Ava and my daughter belong with me, and I will use every resource at my disposal to bring them home. Be smart. Send them back before things get unpleasant. You're a businessman. You understand that some fights aren't worth having. This is one of them. VR. Jace's jaw clenched as he read the message again. So Reynolds had found them already. He wasn't surprised. A man with his resources would have ways of tracking them down. What did surprise him was the audacity of the threat. Reynolds clearly had no idea who he was dealing with. Jace Hamilton might have started as a simple farmer, but he'd built an agricultural empire through sheer determination and a refusal to back down from a challenge, and he'd never faced a challenge more important than this one. Jace hit reply and typed a single sentence. "They're not your family, they're mine." He hesitated for only a moment before hitting send. It was a declaration of war, and he knew it, but some wars were worth fighting, no matter the cost. His phone rang almost immediately. The screen showed unknown caller, but Jace had no doubt who it was. "Hamilton," he answered, his voice steady. "You have no idea what you're getting into," Victor Reynolds replied, his tone coldly furious. "I don't know what lies Ava has told you, but she and Emma are my family, my wife, my daughter." "Ava was never your wife," Jace countered, "and Emma is my daughter. DNA doesn't lie, Reynolds." A moment of silence followed this statement, and Jace could almost hear the calculations happening on the other end of the line. "So, that's her game," Reynolds finally said, his voice dangerously soft. "She's convinced you the child is yours. I don't need convincing. One look at Emma is all it takes." "Appearances can be deceiving," Reynolds said dismissively, "but it doesn't matter. Emma is legally my daughter. I've raised her, provided for her. She calls me Daddy. The courts will take that into consideration." "The courts will also take into consideration the bruises you left on her arms," Jace replied, struggling to keep his anger in check. "What kind of man hurts a 3-year-old child?" Another pause, longer this time. "Ava's been filling your head with lies. The woman is unstable, Hamilton. Has been for years. Postpartum depression that never quite resolved. Paranoid delusions. Ask yourself why she really left you. It wasn't because you worked too much." The implication hung in the air, a poisonous insinuation that Jace refused to acknowledge. "Stay away from them, Reynolds," he warned. "You come near my farm, near my family, and you'll regret it." Reynolds laughed, a cold sound devoid of humor. "Your family, that's rich. Tell me, Hamilton, where were you for the first 3 years of Emma's life? Where were you when Ava was up all night with a colicky baby? Where were you for first steps, first words?" Each question was a knife twisting in Jace's gut, because Reynolds was right. He'd missed all of it. 3 years of his daughter's life, gone forever because Ava had kept the truth from him. "I was right where Ava left me," he answered finally. "But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." "We'll see about that," Reynolds replied. "This isn't over, Hamilton. Not by a long shot." The line went dead, leaving Jace with a growing sense of dread. Reynolds wasn't the type to make idle threats. He would come for Ava and Emma, and when he did, he'd bring the full force of his influence with him. Jace glanced at the security feeds on his laptop, scanning the dark perimeter of his property. For now, all was quiet, but the storm was coming. He could feel it. His phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Tom Blake. "Security alert set to maximum. Night patrols arranged. Nothing gets past us, boss." At least they weren't alone in this fight. Jace had spent years building not just a business, but a network of loyal people who respected him. In Riverdale, the Hamilton name meant something. He just hoped it would be enough. Morning brought a flurry of activity to the farm. Jace was up at dawn, checking security footage and conferring with Tom about increased patrols. By 7, he was on the phone with Jack, arranging for a DNA test that day. "I've got a doctor friend at Riverdale Memorial who can do it off the books," Jack informed him. "No paperwork that Reynolds could track." "Good thinking," Jace agreed. "I'll bring Ava and Emma in later this morning." He was just finishing his first cup of coffee when a soft knock came at the kitchen door. He opened it to find Emma standing on the porch in her pajamas, her dark hair a wild tangle around her sleepy face. "Hi," she said, rubbing her eyes. "Can I have pancakes again?" Jace couldn't help but smile. "Of course. Where's your mom?" "Still sleeping." "I was quiet like a mouse," Emma said proudly, tiptoeing in demonstration. "Can I come in?" "Absolutely," Jace said, opening the door wider. "But maybe we should let your mom know where you are. She might worry if she wakes up and you're gone." Emma's eyes widened at this reasoning. "I didn't think of that." "Tell you what," Jace said, reaching for his phone. "I'll text her while you decide what kind of pancakes you want. Plain, blueberry, or chocolate chip?" "Chocolate chip," Emma declared without hesitation. As Jace texted Ava, he couldn't help but marvel at the ease with which Emma had accepted him into her life. Children were remarkable that way, so open, so trusting. He only hoped he could prove worthy of that. Trust? They were halfway through a stack of chocolate chip pancakes when Ava appeared at the door, her face tight with worry despite his text. "Emma Margaret, you know better than to leave the house without telling me," she scolded. Though her relief was evident as she took in the scene, her daughter safe, happy, her face smeared with chocolate and syrup. "I'm sorry, Mommy," Emma said, looking genuinely contrite. "But Jace made chocolate pancakes." Ava's expression softened as she came to sit beside Emma at the island. "I see that. Did you at least say thank you?" Emma's eyes widened. "Thank you for the pancakes, Jace. You're very welcome," he replied, sliding a mug of coffee across the counter to Ava. "There's plenty more if you're hungry." As they ate, Jace explained the plan for the day, the discreet DNA test at the hospital, followed by a meeting with Jack to discuss legal strategy. "What about Emma?" Ava asked. "I don't want her involved in all of this, hearing about court cases and custody battles." "Matt's wife, Sarah, is a kindergarten teacher," Jace suggested. "She's home for the summer and would be happy to watch Emma for a few hours. They have a little girl about Emma's age." Ava hesitated, her protective instincts clearly warring with practical necessity. "I don't know. Sarah's the best," Jace assured her, "and their house is on the property, just past the north field. We'd be 20 minutes away, max." "Please." "Mommy," Emma chimed in. "I want to play with the little girl." "Her name is Lily," Jace told Emma, "and she has a really cool treehouse." Emma's eyes lit up. "A treehouse? Can I go, Mommy? Pretty please." Faced with her daughter's excitement, Ava relented. "All right, but you have to promise to be on your best behavior." "I promise," Emma declared solemnly. After breakfast, Jace called Matt to arrange for Emma's visit while Ava helped her get dressed and pack a small bag with activities. "Are you sure this is safe?" Ava asked Jace quietly while Emma was in the bathroom brushing her teeth. "If Victor found us so quickly—" "The Petersons' house isn't on any property records," Jace assured her. "It's technically part of the Hamilton estate, but it's unmarked and unregistered as a separate dwelling. And Matt and Sarah understand the situation. They'll be vigilant." Ava nodded, though concern still lined her face. "It's just I haven't been away from her since we left, not for a minute." Jace reached out and squeezed her hand briefly. "She'll be okay, I promise." The simple gesture of comfort seemed to surprise them both, and Jace quickly withdrew his hand, moving to pour more coffee. "I got a call from Reynolds last night," he said, changing the subject. "After you and Emma went to the guest house." Ava froze. "What? How did he find us so quickly?" "Small towns talk," Jace replied, "and he has resources. It doesn't matter." "What matters is that he knows you're here and he's not happy about it." "What did he say?" "Nothing unexpected. Claimed you were unstable, that Emma is his daughter, legally if not biologically. Made vague threats, and you told him." A grim smile crossed Jace's face. I told him to stay away from my family. The word hung between them, family, loaded with meaning and history and possibility. Before Ava could respond, Emma bounded back into the kitchen, a picture book clutched in her hands. "Can I bring this to show Lily?" "Of course, sweetie," Ava said, her voice only slightly strained. "Are you ready to go?" The visit to the Petersons' house went smoothly, with Emma instantly captivated by Lily's collection of dolls and the promised treehouse. Sarah Peterson, a warm, practical woman who had known Jace for years, assured Ava that Emma would be well cared for. "I've got eyes like a hawk where little ones are concerned," she promised, "and Matt's arranged for Tom to keep a man nearby just in case." "Thank you," Ava said, finally relaxing enough to leave Emma with a quick hug and a promise to return soon. As they drove to the hospital, Jace could feel Ava's nervousness in her silence, in the way she kept checking her phone. "She's going to be fine," he assured her. "Sarah will call if Emma needs anything." "It's not just that," Ava admitted. "It's everything. The DNA test, the legal battle ahead. Victor won't give up easily, Jace. He sees Emma as his property, his legacy. He's obsessed with the idea of having an heir." "Well, he picked the wrong family to mess with," Jace replied firmly. "Hamiltons have been fighting for what's ours for 3 generations. I'm not about to stop now." At the hospital, Jack's friend Dr. Roberta Chen conducted the DNA test quickly and discreetly, swabbing the inside of Jace's cheek and placing the sample in a sealed container alongside the one she'd already collected from Emma the day before. Using a hairbrush Ava had brought from the guest house. "I'll run this myself," Dr. Chen promised. "Results should be ready by tomorrow morning at the latest." "And this stays between us," Jace confirmed. "Absolutely," she assured him. "No records, no paperwork." From the hospital, they drove to Jack's office in the courthouse building. Jack Reeves's office was on the 3rd floor of the Riverdale Courthouse building, a space that managed to be both imposing and welcoming with its dark wood paneling and comfortable leather chairs. Jack himself, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and shrewd eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, greeted them with firm handshakes. "Ava," he said, his expression softening slightly. "It's been a long time." "Hello, Jack," she replied. "Thank you for seeing us on such short notice." "Anything for Jace," Jack said, gesturing for them to sit, "and this situation certainly warrants immediate attention." For the next hour, Jack took detailed notes as Ava described her relationship with Victor Reynolds, the controlling behavior, the isolation, the escalating abuse. Jace sat beside her, his hands clenched into fists as she recounted incidents that made his blood boil. "The first time he hit me," Ava said, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes, "was about 6 months after Emma was born. I'd taken her to the park without telling him. He was so angry, said I was trying to show her off to get attention from other men." Jack nodded grimly, making notes. "Did anyone witness this? Household staff? Friends?" "No," Ava admitted. "Victor was careful. At first he only did it when we were alone. Later, when things got worse, he'd send the staff away first." "What about medical treatment? Did you ever seek help for injuries?" Ava shook her head. "He has connections at all the best hospitals." "I was afraid. I understand," Jack assured her. "What about Emma? You mentioned he hurt her." Ava pulled out her phone and showed Jack the photos of Emma's bruised arms. This was 3 days ago, the final straw. Jack studied the images, his expression hardening. "This is good," he said. "Solid evidence of child abuse. I'll have Dr. Chen examine Emma as well, document the bruising professionally." "But will it be enough?" Jace asked. "Reynolds has resources, connections." "So do we," Jack replied firmly. "Riverdale may be small, but we take care of our own. And whether Reynolds knows it or not, Emma Hamilton belongs here." The confidence in Jack's voice was reassuring, but Jace could see the worry still etched on Ava's face. This wouldn't be an easy battle, no matter how much right was on their side. As they left the courthouse, a familiar truck pulled into the parking lot, Matt Peterson's blue pickup. He waved them over, his expression serious. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, "but I thought you should know there's a fancy black SUV been circling the town all morning. Sarah noticed it drive past our place twice already. Thought it might be Reynolds's." "People." Jace felt Ava tense beside him. "Emma is fine," Matt assured her quickly. "Sarah took the girls inside as soon as she spotted the car." Tom's got a man watching the house and I came to find you. We should go, Ava said, her voice tight with fear. Agreed, Jace said, already guiding her toward his truck. Thanks, Matt. Head back and keep an eye on things. We'll be right behind. You. The drive back to the farm was tense, Ava repeatedly checking the road behind them for signs of the black SUV. Jace's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, his jaw set in a hard line. He found us, Ava whispered. He found us so quickly. Finding us is one thing, Jace replied grimly. Getting to you and Emma is another matter entirely. When they arrived at the Petersons' house, they found Sarah and the girls playing a board game in the living room, seemingly unconcerned. Emma's face lit up when she saw Ava. Mommy, I won Candyland 3 times. Ava's relief was palpable as she knelt to hug her daughter. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Outside, Jace conferred with Matt and Tom, who had arrived shortly after them. Double the patrols, he instructed. Anyone approaches the property who isn't on our list, I want to know about it. Already on it, boss, Tom assured him. I've got men watching every access road and I've called in some friends from my police days to help out. What about Reynolds himself? Matt asked. You think he'll show up in person? Jace's expression darkened. Eventually. Men like him like to handle important matters themselves. Back at the main house, Jace set up a cot in his home office. I'll sleep here tonight, he told Ava. Closer to the security monitors. You don't have to do that, Ava protested. The guest house has the alarm system. I'd feel better being able to see all the camera feeds, Jace insisted. Just for tonight. For a moment, Ava looked like she might argue, but then her shoulders slumped slightly. Thank you, she said quietly, for everything you're doing. Don't thank me, Jace replied, his voice gruff. She's my daughter too. That evening, Ava made good on her promise to cook mac and cheese, Emma's favorite, and as it turned out, still one of Jace's favorites too. The 3 of them ate in the main house's kitchen, Emma chattering excitedly about her day with Lily, the treehouse, and her Candyland victories. And we saw a bunny in the garden, she exclaimed. A real one. Not like in my books, it was so fast. That's amazing, honey, Ava said, automatically wiping a smudge of cheese from Emma's chin with her napkin. Watching them, Jace felt an ache in his chest, a bittersweet mixture of joy at having them here, and sadness for all the moments like this he'd missed. 3 years of Emma's life, gone. Her first words, her first steps, all the little daily miracles of watching his child grow. If sensing his thoughts, Ava glanced up and caught his eye. Something passed between them, an acknowledgement perhaps of all that had been lost and all that might still be salvaged. After dinner, Emma asked if they could watch a movie. Lily has Frozen, she informed them excitedly. Can we watch it? 2? I'm afraid I don't have many children's movies, Jace admitted. Actually, Ava said, reaching for her bag, I packed Emma's favorite DVD. It's the one thing I never forget, no matter how quickly we have to leave somewhere. She pulled out a well-worn DVD case. The Little Mermaid. Ariel, Emma exclaimed, clapping her hands. She's the best princess because she has red hair and can swim underwater and has a fish friend named Flounder. Jace's face broke into a genuine smile. Well, I happen to have a TV and DVD player in the living room. Shall we? Settling into the comfortable sofas, with Emma nestled between them, Jace was struck by how easily they'd fallen into a routine, how natural it felt to have them here, like they belonged, like they'd always been meant to be here, in his home, in his life. As the movie played, Emma gradually grew sleepy, her little body slumping against Ava's side. By the time Ariel got her legs, she was fast asleep, her face peaceful. I should get her to bed, Ava whispered, carefully gathering Emma into her arms. Let me help, Jace offered, gently taking Emma from her. The child barely stirred, automatically, nestling against his shoulder in a way that made his heart twist. Together they walked to the guest house, the night air cool and fragrant with the scent of summer flowers. Inside, Jace laid Emma on her bed while Ava found her pajamas. I've got it from here, Ava said softly. Thank you. Jace nodded, reluctant to leave but knowing he should. At the door he paused. I'll be in the main house if you need anything. Just call. We'll be fine, Ava assured him. The security system. Is on and Emma sleeps like a rock once she's out. Still, Jace insisted. Any time, day or night, you call, I'll be here. Their eyes met in the dim light of the entryway, and for a moment Jace was transported back to earlier days, standing on this same porch, saying goodnight to Ava after a date, the anticipation of a kiss hanging between them. But this wasn't then. Too much had happened. Too many years and hurt separated them now. Good night, Jace, Ava said softly, breaking the spell. Good night, he replied, turning to walk back to the main house alone. The night passed without incident, though Jace slept little, checking the security monitors every hour. By dawn he was on his third cup of coffee when his phone rang, Dr. Chen with the DNA results. I rushed it through like you asked, she said without preamble. The results are definitive, Jace. You are Emma's biological father. The probability is 99.9998%. Relief washed over him, though he'd never really doubted the truth. Thank you, Roberta. Can you send the official results to Jack Reeves? Already done, she assured him. And Jace, congratulations. She's a beautiful child. After hanging up, Jace stepped onto the porch, breathing in the fresh morning air as he let the reality sink in. It was official now. Emma was his daughter, not just in his heart, not just in the blue eyes they shared, but in the immutable language of DNA. His attention was drawn to movement at the guest house. Emma, still in her pajamas, running through the dewy grass of the garden, her dark hair flying behind her. She spotted him and changed course, heading straight for the main house. Jace, she called, waving excitedly. Good morning. Can we see the horses again today? He couldn't help but laugh at her enthusiasm. Good morning. To you too. And yes, we can definitely see the horses. Yay, she exclaimed, racing up the porch steps and throwing her arms around his legs in an impulsive hug that nearly knocked him over. Instinctively, he knelt and returned the embrace, marveling at how such a small person could make his heart feel so full. Emma Margaret, Ava's voice called from the garden path. I told you to wait for me. Sorry, Mommy, Emma replied, not sounding particularly sorry. But I wanted to see Jace and ask about the horses. Ava approached, looking both exasperated and amused. I turned my back for 1 minute to make the bed, and she was gone. Again. She's quick, Jace agreed, standing back up, and she's definitely not afraid to go after what she wants. Wonder where she got that from, Ava murmured, giving him a pointed look that made him grin. I have news, he told her quietly, as Emma skipped up the porch steps to peer through the front windows. Dr. Chen called. The DNA test is official, 99.9998%. Match. Ava's expression softened. I never doubted it, not for a second. I've asked her to send the results to Jack. It's the first step in establishing legal paternity, in building our case. Before Ava could respond, Emma tugged at her hand. I'm hungry, Mommy. Can we have breakfast with Jace? If Jace doesn't mind, Ava replied, glancing at him questioningly. I'd love nothing more, he assured them. Come on in. I make a mean omelette. The morning passed peacefully, with breakfast followed by the promised visit to the horses. Jace helped. Emma brushed Daisy's coat, showing her the proper technique, while Ava watched from a safe distance, still wary of the large animals despite Jace's assurances. She's a natural with them, he commented, as Emma confidently offered Daisy an apple slice. No fear at all. She's fearless about most things, Ava agreed. Sometimes it terrifies me. She gets that from you, Jace said, surprising them both. You've always been braver than you give yourself credit for. Ava looked skeptical. I ran from my problems, Jace. That's not bravery. You ran to protect Emma, he corrected, and from what you've told me about Reynolds, that took courage. Before she could respond, his phone rang. Jack Reeves again. Excuse me, he said, stepping away to take the call. Reynolds is making his move, Jack informed him without preamble. He's filed for an emergency custody order claiming Ava abducted Emma and is an unfit mother due to mental instability. Jace's grip tightened on the phone. Can he do that? He can try, Jack replied grimly. He's got a judge in his pocket in the city, Judge Marvin Willis, known for being tough on parental alienation cases. But Emma is my biological daughter, Jace protested. We have the DNA test to prove it. And Reynolds has been acting as her father for 3 years, Jack countered. In family court, that carries weight. Plus, he's claiming you and Ava are conspiring to keep Emma from him, her real father as far as the court knows. So what do? We fight back. I'm filing our own emergency petition for custody based on the DNA test and Ava's allegations of abuse. But Reynolds has a head start, and his legal team is pushing for a hearing as early as next week. Next week, Jace repeated, stunned. That's too soon. We need more time to build our case. Time is exactly what Reynolds doesn't want to give us, Jack said. The sooner the hearing, the less time we have to gather evidence, secure witnesses, build our defense. Can you stall? I'll try, Jack promised. But prepare yourselves. This is going to move quickly, and it's going to get ugly. After hanging up, Jace returned to Ava and Emma, forcing a calm expression that he didn't feel. Everything okay with the horses? He asked, as if nothing was wrong. Daisy let me pet her nose, Emma informed him excitedly. It was so soft. That's wonderful, Jace said, smiling at her enthusiasm, while catching Ava's questioning gaze over her head. Hey, Emma, why don't you give Daisy one more apple while I talk to your mum for a minute? Okay, she agreed easily, already reaching for the apple bucket. Jace guided Ava a few steps away, lowering his voice. That was Jack. Reynolds has filed for emergency custody. Ava's face paled. How? He can't... He's claiming you abducted Emma, and that you're mentally unstable, Jace explained quickly. He's got a judge in his pocket pushing for a hearing next week. Next week? Ava's voice rose slightly before she caught herself glancing at Emma. That's not enough time. Jack's filing our own petition, based on the DNA test and the abuse allegations. He's going to try to stall, buy us more time. Ava wrapped her arms around herself, a gesture Jace was coming to recognize as her attempt to hold herself together when she felt like falling apart. He's going to take her, isn't he? She whispered. He has the money, the connections. He's going to win. No, Jace said firmly, placing his hands on her shoulders. No, he is not going to win. I won't let that happen, Ava. I promise you. She looked up at him, fear and hope battling in her eyes. How can you be so sure? Because I've never wanted anything more in my life than to protect you and Emma, he said simply. And I've never lost a fight I really wanted to win. For a moment they stood there, connected by his touch and the fierce determination in his gaze. Then Emma's excited voice broke the moment. Mommy, Jace, look, Daisy's giving me kisses. They turned to see Emma giggling as the gentle mare nuzzled her hair, searching for more treats. She likes you, Jace called, keeping his voice light despite the weight of worry on his shoulders. Horses are good judges of character. Later that afternoon, as Emma napped in the guest house after the excitement of the morning, Jace and Ava sat on the main house porch, discussing strategy. Jack wants to get statements from anyone who might have witnessed Reynolds' behavior toward you or Emma, Jace explained. Household staff, neighbors, friends, anyone who might have noticed something off. Ava sighed, running her hand through her hair in frustration. Victor was so careful. The staff were all loyal to him. He paid them well to look the other way. And we didn't have many visitors. He preferred to keep me isolated. What about medical records? Surely there must be something. I told you I never sought treatment, Ava reminded him. I was too afraid. The one time I did go to the ER after he pushed me down the stairs, I told them I'd fallen. Victor was right there, making sure I stuck to the story. Jace's jaw clenched at the casual mention of such violence. The stairs? Ava, my God. It was before Emma was born, she clarified quickly. Early in the relationship, when I still thought I could make it work, that he'd change. They never change, Jace said quietly. Men like that. No, Ava agreed. They don't. They sat in silence for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts. Then Ava spoke, her voice hesitant. There might be one person who could help. Margot Whitfield, Victor's executive assistant. She was always kind to me. I think she knew what was happening, though we never discussed it directly. She would sometimes accidentally schedule meetings when Victor was in one of his moods, giving me a chance to escape the house. How do we reach her? I don't know if we can, Ava admitted. Victor watches her closely. He's suspicious of everyone, especially women. Jace pulled out his phone. What's her full name again? Margot Whitfield. Why? Because, Jace said, typing quickly, in this day and age, everyone has some kind of digital footprint. After a few minutes of searching, he found what he was looking for. Margot Whitfield, executive assistant to Victor Reynolds. Graduated from State University, lives in Cedar Heights. That's an upscale neighborhood in the city. And, he smiled triumphantly, she has a sister who lives right here in Riverdale, Rebecca Whitfield Jones, the high school principal. Rebecca is Margot's sister? Ava asked, surprised. I had no idea. Small world, Jace commented, and a potential way to reach Margot without going through Reynolds. It's worth a try, Ava agreed, but we have to be careful. If Victor finds out she's talking to us, we'll be discreet, Jace promised. Let me call Jack, see if he can arrange a meeting through Rebecca. While Jace made the call, Ava went to check on Emma. She returned looking troubled. What's wrong? Jace asked, immediately alert. Nothing exactly, Ava said slowly. Emma was talking in her sleep. She said, no, Daddy, don't hurt Mommy. She's never done that before. The pain in Ava's eyes was almost more than Jace could bear. Without thinking, he pulled her into his arms, holding her close as she fought back tears. We'll get through this, he murmured against her hair. We'll protect her, together. Ava allowed herself to lean into his strength for just a moment before pulling back, wiping at her eyes. I have to be strong for Emma. You are strong, Jace assured her. Stronger than anyone I know. Their eyes met, and something shifted. Between them, a recognition perhaps that despite all the years and pain that separated them, there was still something there. Something that had never quite died. The moment was interrupted by Jace's phone ringing again. It's Jack, he said, answering quickly. The news wasn't good. Despite Jack's best efforts, Judge Willis had scheduled the emergency custody hearing for Monday morning, just 4 days away. That's not enough time, Ava said when Jace relayed the information. How can we possibly be ready? Jack's pulling out all the stops, Jace assured her. And he's reached out to Rebecca Whitfield Jones. She's going to try to get a message to her sister today. And if Margot won't help, or can't, then we focus on what we do have, Jace said firmly. The DNA test proving I'm Emma's father, the photos of her bruises. Your testimony about the abuse, it might be enough, but they both knew the truth. Against Victor Reynolds' money and influence, it might not be nearly enough. That evening, as dark clouds gathered on the horizon, promising another summer storm, Jace insisted that Ava and Emma stay in the main house. The guest house is secure, he argued, but I'd feel better having you here, where I can keep an eye on things directly. For once, Ava didn't protest. The approaching legal battle had left her drained, and the prospect of another night alone in the guest house with her fears wasn't appealing. Emma, of course, was thrilled by the impromptu sleepover, especially when Jace offered to make his specialty for dinner, breakfast food. Pancakes again, she asked hopefully. Even better, he promised. French toast with fresh berries from the garden. While Jace cooked, Ava helped Emma set the table, the domestic scene so natural it was easy to forget the danger looming over them. For a brief, precious time, they were just a family enjoying a meal together, laughing at Emma's stories and savoring the simple pleasure of good food. After dinner, as the first drops of rain began to fall, they settled in the living room. Emma, worn out from the day's excitement, fell asleep on the couch during another viewing of The Little Mermaid. I should put her to bed, Ava said, gently stroking Emma's hair. Guest room's all made up, Jace told her. Second door on the right upstairs. I put fresh towels in the connected bathroom. Thank you, Ava said softly, for everything. Once Emma was tucked in, Ava returned to the living room to find Jace standing by the window, watching the storm, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Reminds me of the night you showed up, he commented, not turning around. Feels like a lifetime ago already. It was only 3 days ago, Ava replied, coming to stand beside him. A lot can happen in 3 days. Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating the rain-soaked farm. Thunder followed seconds later, a low rumble that seemed to echo Jace's unspoken thoughts. "I've been thinking," he said finally, "about what happens after the hearing." Ava tensed slightly. "What do you mean?" "If we win, when we win, what happens? Next, you and Emma, will you stay in Riverdale or will you leave again?" The question hung between them, charged with all the hurt and hope of their complicated history. "I don't know," Ava admitted. "I haven't thought that far ahead. All I've been focused on is keeping Emma safe from Victor." "And after that?" Jace pressed. "Once she's safe, once this is over, what do you want, Ava?" She was quiet for a long moment, watching the rain streak down the window. "I want Emma to be happy, to have a normal life with people who love her." "People," Jace repeated. "Plural." "She needs her father," Ava said simply. "Her real father. She deserves to know you, to have you in her life." "And you?" Jace asked quietly. "What do you need, Ava?" Their eyes met in the reflection of the window, years of unspoken feelings passing between them. "I need," Ava began, then stopped, swallowing hard. "I need to know that I'm not making another mistake, that history won't repeat itself." "I'm not the same man I was 5 years ago," Jace said, turning to face her fully. "And you're not the same woman." "No," she agreed, "we're not." Lightning flashed again, closer this time, briefly illuminating every detail of her face. The small scar above her eyebrow from a childhood fall, the fan of dark lashes, the full curve of her lower lip. All so familiar, yet different too, marked by time and experience, by joy and suffering. "I never stopped loving you," Jace confessed, the words slipping out before he could stop them. "Even when I told myself I hated you for leaving, even when I tried to forget you, I couldn't." Ava's eyes widened at his admission. "Jace." The doorbell rang, cutting off whatever she had been about to say. They both froze, exchanging alarmed glances. It was nearly 10 p.m. in the middle of a storm. No one would be making social calls at this hour. "Stay here," Jace said, his voice instantly shifting from vulnerable to protective. He moved to the security panel near the door, checking the front porch camera feed. A woman stood on the porch, rain plastering her dark hair. To her head, her expression a mixture of fear and determination. She was well dressed but soaked through, clearly having been caught in the storm without an umbrella. "It's Margot Whitfield," Ava gasped, recognizing her immediately. "Victor's assistant." Jace hesitated only a moment before opening the door. Margot stepped inside, water streaming from her designer coat. "I'm sorry for coming so late," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Rebecca told me what's happening. I had to come to warn you." "Warn us about what?" Jace asked, instantly alert. Margot looked directly at Ava, her expression grave. "Victor knows about the DNA test. He knows Emma isn't his biological child, and he's coming for her tonight." "Tonight?" Ava gasped, her face draining of color. "How? How did he find out about the DNA test?" Margot Whitfield shivered slightly, water dripping from her expensive coat onto the hardwood floor. "He has people everywhere. Someone at the hospital must have tipped him off." Jace's protective instincts kicked into overdrive. "Tom," he called, already reaching for his phone, "we need to lock this place down now." As he made the call, Ava guided Margot to the living room. "You're soaked. Let me get you a towel." "There's no time," Margot insisted, her voice urgent. "You don't understand how dangerous Victor is when he feels betrayed, and finding out Emma isn't his biological child." She shook her head grimly. "I've never seen him so angry." Jace returned from his call, his expression hard. "Security's on full alert. Tom's men are patrolling the perimeter, and the police have been notified." "The police won't help," Margot warned. "Not against Victor. He owns half the force. Not in Riverdale, he doesn't," Jace countered. "Sheriff Barnes has known me since I was a kid. He'll do what's right." Ava wrapped her arms around herself, that familiar protective gesture that made Jace's heart ache. "I should check on Emma," she said, already heading for the stairs. "I'll come with you," Jace said, not wanting either of them out of his sight. Together, they climbed the stairs and slipped quietly into the guest room, where Emma slept peacefully, unaware of the danger approaching. In the dim glow of the nightlight, her face was angelic, One small hand curled against her cheek. "She looks so much like you when you sleep," Ava whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I used to watch her and see you in every expression, every gesture." Jace's throat tightened. "She's perfect," he said simply. "Victor can't have her," Ava said fiercely. "I won't let him take her." "He won't," Jace promised. "Not while I'm breathing." Back downstairs, they found Margot pacing the living room, still, in her wet clothes. "You said Victor is coming tonight," Jace said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "How sure are you about this?" "Absolutely certain," Margot replied. "I overheard him on the phone, with his head of security. They know exactly where you are. They're planning to take Emma while everyone's sleeping." "How many men?" "4, plus Victor himself, all armed." Ava gasped, but Jace's expression remained determined. "Let them come," he said grimly. "This is my land, my home, and I'm done running from bullies like Reynolds." "You don't know what he's capable of," Margot insisted. "I've worked for him for 7 years. I've seen what happens to people who cross him." "Why are you helping us?" Ava asked suddenly. "You're risking everything." A flash of pain crossed Margot's face. "Because I should have helped you sooner. I saw what was happening, how he treated you, but I was too afraid to do anything." She looked away, guilt evident in her expression. "Then, I saw Emma's bruises that day. I can't be silent anymore." Jace's phone buzzed. A text from Tom. "Black SUV spotted on County Road 8 heading this way. ETA 15 minutes. "They're coming," he announced grimly. Tom spotted them on the approach road. "We should run," Ava said, fear evident in her voice. "Take Emma and go somewhere safe." "No more running," Jace replied firmly. "This ends tonight." He moved to the gun cabinet in his office, unlocking it and removing his father's old shotgun. The weight of it was familiar in his hands, a tool like any other on the farm, but one he hoped he wouldn't have to use. Is that really necessary? Haver asked, eyeing the weapon nervously. "I won't fire unless they force my hand," Jace assured her, "but Reynolds needs to understand what he's walking into." Margot cleared her throat. "There's something else you should know," she said, reaching into her purse and pulling out a USB drive. "I've been keeping records, emails, financial documents, recordings of Victor's threats, including his plans to use Judge Willis to get custody of Emma regardless of the DNA results." Jace took the drive, hope flaring in his chest. "This could change everything." "It will," Margot confirmed. "There's enough evidence there to destroy Victor's reputation and put him in prison. But first, you have to survive tonight." Jace handed the drive to Ava. "Get this to Jack Reeves. Now, take the back road through the north pasture. Matt will show you the way." "I'm not leaving you," Ava protested. "You have to," Jace insisted. "You and Emma need to be somewhere safe while I deal with Reynolds. This evidence is our insurance policy if things go wrong." The determination in his voice left no room for argument. Ava nodded reluctantly, tucking the drive into her pocket. "I'll call Matt," Jace said, already dialing. "He and Sarah will hide you and Emma at their hunting cabin in the hills. Reynolds won't be able to find you there." As Jace made arrangements, Ava went upstairs to wake Emma and gather a few essentials. The child was groggy and confused, but didn't protest as her mother quickly dressed her and gathered her favorite stuffed animal. "Are we going on an adventure, Mommy?" she asked sleepily. "Yes, sweetheart," Ava replied, forcing brightness into her voice. "A special nighttime adventure with Uncle Matt and Aunt Sarah." Back downstairs, Matt had already arrived, his expression grim as Jace briefed him on the situation. "Sarah's waiting at the cabin with supplies," he reported. "The back trail's clear. No one will spot them leaving." "Good man," Jace said, clasping his friend's shoulder. "Keep them safe, no matter what happens here." "You know I will," Matt promised. "But you should come too, boss. This isn't your fight alone." "Yes, it is," Jace replied. "This is my family, my home. I'm not backing down." The finality in his tone ended the discussion. Matt turned to help Ava with the small bag she'd packed, leading them toward the kitchen door where his truck waited, engine running. Jace knelt to Emma's level, his heart breaking at the thought that he might never see her again if things went badly. "Be good for your mum, okay, princess?" Emma nodded solemnly, then surprised him by throwing her arms around his neck in a fierce hug. "I love you, Jace," she whispered. the simple words nearly bringing him to his knees. "I love you too, Emma," he replied, his voice rough with emotion. "More than you'll ever know." As he straightened, his eyes met Ava's. 1,000 unspoken words passed between them in that moment. "Be careful," she said softly. "Please." "I will," he promised. Impulsively, she stepped forward and pressed her lips to his in a brief, desperate kiss. "Come back to us," she whispered against his mouth. Then she was gone, hurrying out the door with Emma in her arms, Matt close behind. Jace watched through the window as they climbed into the truck and disappeared down the dark service road that led to the back of the property. "They'll be safe," Margot assured him, seeing the worry on his face. "Victor's focus is here, on you." "Good," Jace said grimly. "Let him come." They didn't have to wait long. Within minutes, the security system beeped, a silent alert to Jace's phone showing a vehicle had stopped at the main gate. On the camera feed, he could see a black SUV idling, its headlights cutting through the rain-soaked night. "They're here," he told Margot. "You should hide upstairs. This could get ugly." "No," she replied firmly. "I've been hiding too long. It's time I stood up to Victor too." The gate remained closed. Jace had remotely activated the security locks. But it didn't stop their visitors for long. The camera showed 4 men exiting the SUV, followed by a 5th. Victor Reynolds himself, his imperious figure unmistakable even in the grainy night vision. With practiced efficiency, the security team disabled the electronic lock and pushed the gate open. The SUV rolled through, making its way up the long driveway toward the main house. Jace positioned himself on the front porch, shotgun visible but pointed at the ground. As the vehicle stopped in the circular drive, he stood tall, a silent sentinel guarding his home. Victor stepped out first, seemingly unconcerned by the rain that immediately began to soak his expensive suit. He was a handsome man in his late 40s, with silver at his temples and the confident bearing of someone used to getting his way. His cold eyes fixed on Jace with open contempt. "Hamilton," he called, his voice carrying easily through the storm. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." "Nothing here belongs to you, Reynolds," Jace replied evenly. Victor's security team flanked him, their hands hovering near concealed weapons. Jace noted with grim satisfaction that Tom's men had also taken up positions around the property perimeter, creating a standoff. "I'm here for my wife and daughter," Victor continued, taking a step forward. "We can do this the easy way, or we can make it difficult. Your choice." "Ava isn't your wife," Jace countered. "And Emma isn't your daughter. DNA doesn't lie." A flash of rage crossed Victor's face, quickly masked by a cold smile. "A child isn't defined by DNA, Hamilton. She's been mine since birth. I raised her, provided for her. One test doesn't change that." "And the bruises you left on her arms?" Jace demanded, anger rising in his voice. "Is that how a father treats his child?" Victor waved a dismissive hand. "Children need discipline. Ava's always been too soft with the girl." "No child needs the kind of discipline that leaves bruises," Jace replied, his grip tightening on the shotgun. "And no woman deserves what you put Ava through." A flicker of surprise crossed Victor's face. "So she's been telling tales, has she? Spinning stories about how terrible I was?" He chuckled darkly. "Ava has always had a flair for the dramatic. It's part of her charm." "It's not a tale when there's evidence," Margot said, stepping out onto the porch beside Jace. Victor's confident expression faltered for the first time. "Margot? What the hell are you doing here?" "The right thing," she replied firmly. "Finally." "Whatever." "She's told you is a lie," Victor said to Jace, though his eyes remained fixed on his assistant. "Margot has been embezzling from my company for years. She's not a credible witness." "Is that the best you can do, Victor?" Margot asked, her voice steady despite the fear evident in her eyes. "I've documented everything, every threat, every cover-up, every bribe to judges and police. It's all backed up and ready to go public if anything happens to me or to Ava and Emma." For the first time, uncertainty crept into Victor's expression. He turned to his security team, murmuring something Jace couldn't hear. One of the men nodded and spoke into a radio. "This is your last chance, Hamilton," Victor called, his voice hardening. Tell me where they are or things will get very unpleasant." "They're gone," Jace replied simply. "Somewhere you'll never find them. It's over, Reynolds." "Nothing's over until I say it is," Victor snarled, his composure finally cracking. "You think you can take what's mine? You think you can win against me? I own this state. One word from me, and your precious farm will be buried in so many lawsuits you'll be begging for mercy. Is that how you solve all your problems?" Jace asked calmly. "With threats and intimidation? That might work in your world, Reynolds, but not here, not in Riverdale." As if on cue, the sound of sirens pierced the night, growing louder as multiple vehicles approached. Up the main road, Victor's head whipped around, alarm replacing his rage. "You called the cops?" he demanded. "Sheriff Barnes is an old friend," Jace replied, allowing himself a small smile. "And unlike the police in your pocket, he can't be bought." "This isn't over," Victor warned, already backing toward his SUV. "I'll still get her back. The hearing on Monday." "Won't be happening," Margot interjected. "Not with the evidence I've provided about your relationship with Judge Willis. The State Bar Association frowns on judges accepting bribes, Victor." For a moment, Victor looked as though he might lunge at them, consequences be damned. But the approaching sirens gave him pause. With a final venomous glare, he climbed back into the SUV, his security team following suit. "This isn't the end, Hamilton," he called as the vehicle pulled away. Not by a long shot, but Jace knew it was. The look of defeat in Reynolds' eyes told him everything he needed to know. The man was used to winning through intimidation and corruption, but here on Jace's territory, those weapons had proven useless. Sheriff Barnes arrived moments later, his cruisers boxing in the departing SUV at the main gate. Jace watched from the porch as Reynolds and his men were detained for questioning, the sheriff's stern face visible even from a distance as he read them their rights. "It's really over?" Margot asked, disbelief evident in her voice. "It's over," Jace confirmed, finally allowing himself to lower the shotgun. "Reynolds' power ends at the Riverdale town line, and with your evidence, it may end altogether." "I should have come forward sooner," Margot said regretfully. "So many people got hurt because I was too afraid." "You're here now," Jace replied kindly. "That's what matters." After giving their statements to Sheriff Barnes and ensuring that Reynolds and his men would be held overnight for trespassing and attempted breaking and entering, Jace finally allowed himself to breathe. The immediate danger had passed. He called Matt, relieved to hear that Ava and Emma had arrived safely at the cabin. "Tell them to stay put until morning," he instructed. "I want to be sure Reynolds' people are all accounted for before they come." "Home?" "Home." The word slipped out naturally, and Jace realized that's exactly what the farm had become in just a few short days. A home for Ava and Emma, his family. The next morning dawned clear and peaceful, the storm having passed during the night. Jace was in the kitchen making coffee when he heard vehicles approaching. Stepping onto the porch, he smiled at the sight of Matt's truck coming up the drive, followed by Tom's security jeep. The truck had barely stopped when the passenger door flew open, and Emma leapt out, running toward him with her arms outstretched. "Jace!" she cried, her face alight with joy. "You're okay!" He caught her as she launched herself at him, swinging her up into his arms in a hug that felt like coming home. "Of course I am, Princess," he assured her. "Everything's okay now." Over Emma's shoulder, he saw Ava approaching more slowly, her eyes searching his face for confirmation that the danger had truly passed. "Reynolds?" she asked quietly. "In jail," Jace replied, "along with his security team, and with Margot's evidence they'll be staying there for quite a while." The relief that washed over Ava's face was profound. For the first time since she'd appeared in his life again, Jace saw her truly relax, the constant fear finally ebbing from her eyes. "It's really over," she whispered, as if afraid to believe it. "It's really over," he confirmed, shifting Emma to one arm so he could reach out and take Ava's hand. "You're both safe now." The next few days passed in a blur of legal meetings and preparations. Jack Reeves worked tirelessly, using Margot's evidence to have the emergency custody hearing dismissed and filing for Jace's paternity rights to be formally recognized. With Victor Reynolds, Facing multiple criminal charges, his claim on Emma had evaporated, but Jace wanted everything to be official beyond any doubt. "The judge has approved your petition," Jack announced 3 days later, entering Jace's office with a broad smile. "You are now legally recognized as Emma Mitchell Hamilton's father, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails." The news hit Jace like a physical force, joy and gravity all at once. He was officially Emma's father, not just in his heart, not just in his DNA, but in the eyes of the law. "Thank you, Jack," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "for everything." "Don't thank me," Jack replied, echoing Jace's own words from days before. "This is what you deserve, both of you." That evening, Jace arranged a small celebration dinner. Matt and Sarah were invited, along with Tom and Dr. Chen, all of whom had played crucial roles in protecting Emma and establishing Jace's paternity. Even Margot Whitfield attended, looking years younger now that she was free from Victor's influence. As they gathered around the big farmhouse table, laughter and conversation flowing freely, Jace found himself watching Ava. She was smiling, truly smiling, in a way he hadn't seen since before she'd left 5 years ago. The shadows were gone from her eyes, replaced by a light that made his heart swell. Emma, of course, was the star of the evening, bouncing from guest to guest with inexhaustible energy, proudly showing off the new dress Jace had bought her for the occasion. She seemed to have bloomed in just a few days, shedding the wariness that had been her constant companion under Victor's roof. "She's incredible," Sarah Peterson commented, coming to stand beside Jace as he watched Emma chattering animatedly to Tom about horses. "So resilient. Kids are amazing that way," Jace agreed. "They bounce back if you give them love and safety." "And you've given her both," Sarah observed. "You're a natural father, Jace." The compliment warmed him, though he knew he still had much to learn about being a parent. "I'm trying," he said simply. After dinner, as their guests began to depart, Jace found himself alone with Ava on the front porch. Emma had finally worn herself out and was asleep upstairs, exhausted from the excitement of the celebration. "It was a wonderful evening," Ava said softly, gazing out at the farm illuminated by the setting sun. "Thank you for arranging it." "We had a lot to celebrate," Jace replied, "and a lot of people to thank." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, shoulders almost touching as they leaned against the porch railing. "I've been thinking," Ava said finally, "about what happens next." Jace's heart quickened. This was the conversation he'd been both anticipating and dreading since the danger had passed. "And?" he prompted gently. "Emma needs stability," Ava began. "After everything she's been through with Victor, she needs a safe place to just be a child, to grow up loved and protected." "She can have that here," Jace said, unable to keep the eagerness from his voice. "The farm is the perfect place for a kid to grow up. Room to run, animals to care for, fresh air." "I know," Ava agreed, turning to face him. "That's why I think we should stay." The simple statement sent a flood of joy through Jace. "You'll stay? Both of you?" "If that's what you want," Ava replied, vulnerability evident in her expression. "I know it's a lot to ask after everything." "It's all I want," Jace interrupted, taking her hands in his. "You and Emma here, with me. It's everything I've wanted. Since the moment I saw you again." Ava's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of joy, not sadness. "I was so afraid you'd never forgive me. For leaving. For keeping Emma from you. For all of it." "There's nothing to forgive," Jace said simply. "We both made mistakes. We were young and hurting, and we didn't know how to fix what was broken between us. But we have a second chance now. A chance to do better." "For Emma's sake," Ava added. "For Emma," Jace agreed. "And for us." The last rays of the setting sun caught in Ava's hair, turning it to burnished gold. She had never looked more beautiful to Jace than in that moment, with hope and love shining in her eyes. "I still love you, Ava," he said softly. "I never stopped. Not for a single day." "I love you too," she whispered. "I tried to stop. I tried to convince myself that what we had wasn't real, that it was just young love that couldn't last. But seeing you with Emma, watching you fight for us without a second thought, I can't pretend anymore." Jace pulled her into his arms, holding her close as if afraid she might disappear again. "Stay," he murmured against her hair. "Stay with me. Let's be the family we were always meant to be." Her answer was to lift her face to his, their lips meeting in a kiss that felt like coming home after a long, lonely journey. All the years of separation, all the pain and misunderstandings melted away in that moment, leaving only the certainty that they were exactly where they belonged. 6 months later, on a perfect autumn day, Jace and Ava stood beneath an arch of fall flowers in the farm's apple orchard, surrounded by friends and family. Emma, dressed in a pale blue dress that matched her eyes, her father's eyes, scattered flower petals with enthusiastic abandon as she preceded them down the makeshift aisle. "Ready?" Jack Reeves asked, standing ready to walk Ava to her groom, in the absence of her father. "More than ready," she replied, her eyes fixed on Jace waiting for her beneath the arch, his face alight with love and joy. As she walked toward him, Ava reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. From young lovers to estranged exes to unlikely allies, and finally to this, a family forged through fire, stronger for having been broken and mended. When she reached Jace, he took her hands in his eyes never leaving hers as the minister began the ceremony. Emma stood beside them, her small hand slipped into Jace's, completing their circle. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, "we are gathered here today to witness the reunion of two hearts that, despite time and distance, never truly parted." As the words washed over them, Ava knew with absolute certainty that this was where she belonged. Here on this land, with this man building a life and a home for their daughter. The storm had passed, the secrets were laid bare, and what remained was the purest, strongest love she had ever known. Their second chance had become their greatest blessing. And as Jace's lips met hers to seal their vows, Ava knew that this was not an ending but a beginning. The beginning of the life they were always meant to share, on this farm where a stranded car in a storm had brought them back together, and where love had finally triumphantly come home. The end.